welcome to PFS. This is a monthly wrap-up of the events of April 2021. I'll talk about some of the economic events of April 2021. Obviously, there has been a lot going on in the global economy, and especially the world is still suffering from the COVID-19 crisis, and some of the economies are suffering a lot, like India, Brazil, and some other emerging economies are suffering a lot. Advanced economies are likely to emerge from the COVID crisis with little lasting damage. That is mainly due to the rapid rollout of vaccines and their willingness to increase sharply public spending and borrowing. However, the nations that are most at risk of sluggish economic recovery are the emerging economies with little access to COVID-19 vaccines. So though the COVID-19 has been the center of the topic of the global economic events, I'll be focusing on three topics that are trending and are of interest that I find interesting. One is related to the demographics, special attention to China. The second one is rising housing prices in the rich world. And the third one, the boom of IPOs and special purpose acquisition companies. Let's focus on the demography first. So the rumor is Chinese population has already peaked last year, and the preliminary census data shows that the population size has declined for the first time in last 5 decades. The birth rate has fallen significantly, and the latest guess is that by 2050, 1/3 of the Chinese will be in their 60s or older. With birth rate falling faster than expected, it can be even worse. And the second worry is the greater gender imbalance due to 1980s birth restriction with a strong cultural preference for boys. And these have huge implications for the global economy in the next 2 decades. So let's focus on the housing prices and the rise in IPOs and special purpose acquisition companies. So when the pandemic hit last year, most of the analysts and economists forecasted that the housing prices will sluggish, the real estate will suffer a lot, and also the IPO market for capital raising may not perform well. In fact, many forecasted that there will be a decline in the capital raising through IPOs. Surprisingly, the exactly opposite thing happened. So in the last 1 year, the housing prices has increased sharply in the rich world. In America, it increased by 11%. In Britain, it increased by 8%, in Germany 9%, and in New Zealand 22%. The real housing prices, after adjusting for the inflation, rose by 5% on average in the last 12 months in OECD countries. We have also seen that the real estate prices has also shown robustness in Bangladesh despite the COVID-19 crisis. And the final issue I'll be focusing on is the rise in global equity markets, capital raising through initial public offerings. So worldwide, in the last year, $800 billion of equity has been raised in 2020. And that is mostly by the non-financial firms and the highest sum on record. And this year, 875 IPOs raising at least $1 million have been carried out. And that outstripped 592 firms that floated over the same period in 2020 during the dot-com bubble. This influx has been largely correlated with the rise of special purpose acquisition companies. So in short, it is called SPACs. And SPACs are shale companies with no underlying business that raise capital from investors to acquire the private firms. The global economy is trying to recover its damage from the last year. And as I am talking, the latest news shows that the US economy grew by 6.4% on an annualized basis in the first quarter. So let's hope the world will come back to the normality sooner than later. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.